product essentially is helping companies who are starting up and companies who are not really enterprise scale in the number of employees, still to help them digitize their spends and automate their expenses, right? So expense.com, xpns.com as the website stands for, is essentially a platform which allows companies to be able to seamlessly digitize their expenses for their employees without having to go through elaborate implementation cycles. It's a DIY platform. This platform will be used by startups, will be used by companies whose number of employees are relatively small, as well as partners. So we have a whole host of partners who work with us to be able to address various segments of customers. And we want to offer this platform to these partners. They are HRMS companies, they are companies like RazorPayX, they are companies like Yatra.com, a whole host of partners who will also have access to this platform, which will allow for a seamless onboarding. If you look at what's happening over the last few years in India and around the world, and COVID obviously has accelerated this process, companies and senior stakeholders in these organizations are increasingly realizing that digitizing is a non-negotiable. It's a must, right? And if you're digitizing your entire business, what you're offering to your employees as a platform is extraordinarily important, because you want to create a culture of digitizing, right? Secondly, companies, given the current high interest rate regimes, current funding winter, if I may use that word, companies are increasingly becoming cost conscious. They are wanting to make sure that their overall cost base is as low as possible, and also to encourage a culture of being efficient, right? And that means that you want to, on the one hand, keep a hawk's eye on the costs, including employee expenses, all your costs, but at the same time you don't want to increase your people expense, who are going to be able to monitor these expenses, right? So what's the solution? You have to be able to then use technology, right? Use digitization as a means to do what people have historically done, right? And with AI coming in, with all these tools coming in, that has become increasingly easier, and we leverage these tools heavily as well. Look, I think I beg to differ. There are no propositions which are similar in the market, because if you look at what's offered in the market in India today, a lot of it is either focused on enterprise and mid-market customers, where you get the full stack solution, but the implementation cycles are long, the costs are significant, or you have a platform which is fairly rudimentary, fairly unsophisticated, and customers are asked to make do with what is available, right? The challenge today is that especially users and all of us as companies and individuals have got habituated to an experience which is literally Amazon-like, right? So irrespective of whether the size of the organization is large or small, the employee expectation is that their ability to make their expense claims has to be very seamless. That is something that we provide with expense.com. Also, a lot of the offerings in the market do not necessarily couple their platform with a payment instrument. Now that's like giving half the solution, to be honest, right? We couple this deeply with our expense.com prepaid cards to begin with, and in the coming months we are going to marry it with our corporate card offerings as well. Well, end of the day, benefits to businesses range from reduction of leakage to fully digitized platform, which allows them to be able to, at a click of a button, look at all these expenses over the course of the next 10 years, because all this data sits on the cloud, right? So if there's a query from the income tax, if there's a GST query, if there's an internal audit, any of these scenarios, we are able to make sure that the platform allows them to be able to access this data in terms of expenses at a click of a button. These are some basic benefits, and if you go a step beyond, by providing a payment instrument which is tightly coupled and married with the platform, the corporate is then able to, or the business is then able to ensure that the entire cycle, right from raising the expense to the reimbursement or dispersing the travel advance, is completely digital and trackable. See, at the core, when you bundle the payment instrument, because nobody likes multiple payment instruments, nobody likes multiple apps, multiple platforms. So the tight coupling basically ensures that users do not have to incur these expenses on their personal payment instruments, right? Increasingly, government has also become very particular that they want clear segregation between business expenses and personal expenses. An example for this is the latest discussion and ruling that has happened around LRS, and this is around foreign transactions, right? The government has come out and said all business expenses are exempt from the LRS cap. Now, how does a company and an individual establish that a particular expense was for business, right? If you don't have a platform like expense.com, if you don't have a separate payment instrument through which these payments are made, it becomes increasingly difficult to be able to make this segregation. So overall, the thrust of the ecosystem is to be able to have a very clear distinction between personal expenses and business expenses, and by offering the expense card tightly coupled with the platform, you are able to clearly establish that segregation. See, ultimately, all innovation that we create or offer in Zaggle is largely dictated by what we hear from our customers. When we talk to our customers, we get a very clear sense of where the market is moving, and the benefit that we have is a very large base of customers that we today have. This large base, which runs into thousands of customers, allows us to get deep insight in the market. So whether it's Zoyer on the accounts payable platform, or whether it's on the expense.com platform, which is focused on businesses which are requiring a more nimble solution, I think that governs our framework. In addition, of course, we look at what's happening in the ecosystem, things like the boom around AI, things like what's happening overall in the ecosystem around the cloud exploding. And we leverage those trends heavily, but the use case and how it's implemented is largely governed by what we hear from customers. When we hear a particular opportunity, we take that opportunity to maybe 50, 100 other corporates, right? And when we hear a very clear resounding, yes, we also want it, that's when we plunge into building a solution for them. Where in the last 6 months or so, we have launched two very large platforms. One is Zoyer, which is taking our spend management platform to a whole new level by including the accounts payable use case. And now with expense.com coming in, we are catering to a much larger number of companies, whether it's startups, whether it's a lot of companies, which would be law firms, could be private equity firms, could be a lot of firms who have consulting firms who may not have very large employee bases, but who tend to need these solutions a lot, right? So we've expanded our product portfolio a lot, and in the coming years we have certain plans in terms of what we'll offer. I think we've been fairly vocal about our impending launch of some of our co-branded credit cards, which is in the work with quite a few banks, and those solutions which are again focused on the corporates. So these are corporate credit cards or purchase cards or business cards, and those would be the next ones. Each one of these card programs would be deeply coupled with Zoyer and our expense platforms.